and welcome to Ideagen TV. I'm here with my esteemed colleague and friend and chair of Ideagen LA, Stephen Tingus. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
Thank, thank you so much.
So glad to have you as always, and I'm excited today I get a chance to interview you rather than you interviewing somebody else. It'll be a nice change of
Exactly.
pace, so I'm looking forward to it. To get started, could you tell us all a little bit about what you've been working on and what you've been involved in? What's going on in your life, Stephen?
Well, thank you. I am the chair of Ideagen Hollywood, and my role is for the past 12 years. I can't believe it. Already 12 years. But I'm one of the leaders in Hollywood on diversity and disability inclusion. Prior to that, I used to work for former President George Bush in Washington, D.C., where I led disability policy for our country. In fact, I used to work with Ideagen's leader and founder, George Zafakis. So it's really exciting to help Ideagen with their Hollywood and Los Angeles efforts. I've been working on producing some major projects like the American Music Awards last November, where I made the stage and the whole production accessible for everybody, including sign language interpreting. And I got some other really big projects that I really can't talk about right now, but they're going to be so positively impactful for the disability community and everybody else that's underrepresented.
Well, I'm hoping, maybe next time we have you on the show, you can tell us about some of these secret projects you're working on. But I know, knowing you, they're going to be a big deal. You're always working kind of at the cutting edge of inclusion, like you talked about at the AMAs. That's great. And Ideagen is really proud of you for all the work you're doing there. And
Thank you.
on that note, I kind of want to talk about, I'm going to loop the next two questions in with each other because I think they're kind of related. How did you get into the position you're in today, and what challenges have you had to overcome to get to this position?
Okay, well, I've been a political all my life, and when I left the White House, not too long, a decade more ago, I worked for a nonprofit that helped people with disabilities as far as rehabbing their bodies after injury. But because of the recession, I decided to harness the strength of the media to promote the inclusion of people with disabilities into TV and movies. I think the most important thing that anybody can do is educate others who really don't understand, the background, how people live their lives that have challenges. So I've been enjoying my current career path in Hollywood, definitely making some positive achievements for the disability community and for other communities as well. Because don't forget, people with disabilities are in a part of every community around the world.
Yeah. So you mentioned, in your line of work, how important it is, to educate people on this and to go to the media to spread awareness on inclusion, especially in Hollywood. And I want to take those points you made and take them a step farther and ask you, how as a society we further alter the stigma surrounding those with disabilities, and particularly in your line of work?
Well, obviously, we're all facing discrimination and setbacks given where we are in the country and the world. I'm going to save you from my political insights, but just say, as a human being, we need to take a step back and take a deep breath and realize that we need to move forward, not backward, in our thinking and acceptance of others because we're different, or that we have different views that some other community might not like. I feel that discrimination is obviously still front and center, but I believe the more we talk and the more we're given the airtime just to be transparent, the more people can make their own informed understanding and decisions than being blasted with the same old information, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense, and I like how you phrased it, that sparing us from your politics, granted, but politics really are only the means of a way to get there. Really, this inclusion is about progress, and that's kind of what you mentioned there, is that it doesn't need to be political. Along with all of the SDGs that we are constantly espousing, none of them need to be political. It's only a means towards progress, and I really like how you spelled that out. On that same note, is there a specific project you can hone in on for us you've been involved in that you're most proud of?
Oh my God. Where do I begin? I'm proud of, I don't really, it's weird because everybody says, oh, you're doing such good work. And I love my peers with disabilities, but for those of us that have lived 5, 6 decades when we were first labeled handicap, I seem to have developed, as I've aged, a more wider understanding and focus on not just my community, but other communities that have challenges or struggles. And I think in general, my projects, like I just got a huge script today to pitch to my friends in Hollywood. And you all know who you are because they're the top 10 on the Hollywood Reporter. But I got a huge script today that cuts across the Black community, the disabled community, the LGBT community, the Asian community, which is so underrepresented, including the Indian and the Indian American community. But I'm just proud that I'm able to convey in the business sense what inclusion means to production companies and studios and film schools about redefining inclusion for everybody.
Yeah, that's really fantastic, and I have so many questions in regards to the scripts you're getting and the projects you're working on. I can't wait to be updated on them. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
You mentioned your work as you're an inclusion activist, and we're here to talk about kind of the SDGs and where you stand on those. And
Right.
I want to ask you, is there a specific goal that you are really honing in right now that you're trying to move forward on? I know your whole activism and theme is inclusion, but is there one goal that particularly speaks to you that you personally want to see resolved that you're working on?
Well, I think all of the goals of the UN are important. Uh, but I would say cross-cutting, my vision as someone that looks about, being a cross-cutter about issues is that with the EU summit in Athens, my ancestral land, I hope that the summit will, and its global members, really think about and bring to the table how we can improve the hiring of people with disabilities to the corporate and the government arena. Because let's be honest, and I'm able to say this as a person with a disability, the ADA will become 32 years old on July 26th. And I was a member of the California delegation that helped not sponsor, but promote the ADA. And here's my take on the ADA for our global viewers is that we have made great strides for accessible landscapes, buildings, stores, and other environmental situations. But I still feel that the ADA by the lay public, and I'm talking about the Fortune 500 corporate leaders, is that they think it's a economic burden to hire people with skills like myself. Although the people that I associate with, once they get to know me, they know I'm no different than anybody else, and they know I outperform. But we need to do a better job of educating. My community needs to do a better job about associating with these leaders and educating them that the cost of hiring a person like myself with regard to reasonable accommodations is about $500 right now. That's all. That's up front. That's it. And the rewards, both physically, as far as being productive, and emotionally, with your fellow colleagues, can be immeasurable with regard to collegiality and understanding how everybody lives and their backgrounds. So I think rather than pinpointing one of the goals, I would just urge summit members to remember some facts that I gave today. Only 18% of us are employed right now. 18% of people with disabilities that are employable and seeking work, only 18% have jobs compared to non-disabled population. So we all need to do a better job. And again, with regard to the ADA, I come from a very strong business-minded Greek family. Many people think that people with disabilities are they like to sue everybody. That's not true. That's not true at all. Just remember that there are bad apples in every community. But please get to know your candidate with a disability. And that will tell you whether to hire or whether to pass them over, just like anybody else. We're all human, and we all want to live a good life.
Yeah, and you bring up such a good point that, the cost of including this variable demographic, this huge variety of people, is far outweighed by the variety of ideas and experience that these people are going to bring into corporate or government or in any sector, truly. And I also had no idea that the ADA was so young. I think you said 32 years old.
Yes, 32 on July 2026.
You would think something like that would have been in place much longer than 32 years, but I'm so happy to hear that they're making strides and at least moving in the right direction, right?
We are making strides, and everybody comes to the disability movement with their own viewpoints. My peers, everybody has their own viewpoints of how to make the law and the effort stronger. So, to my peers that are watching, I say we achieved a lot with a lot of sweat and a lot of hard work, but we have a lot more to do. And I'm doing my part as best as I can.
That's fantastic to hear. And I want to switch gears a little bit because I know our audience is curious, and there's certainly some people out there that would love to get your expert insight on this. What advice would you give someone in a situation of trying to break into the Hollywood circle? Be it in inclusion, but also on the employment or even acting side, or just breaking into that, I know can be tremendously hard, no matter who you are. And I want to take that a step further and ask you, not only what would you recommend of how they break into that, but also what leadership qualities should someone like that possess?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. I would say how I started was doing independent movies. I always liked to act. I acted in junior high, high school. Then I went into my prior career, but I would say work on a crew, be an associate, producer, help with wardrobe, help with the cameraman, really learn the specifics of film making, because if you have that foundation, you are so marketable. A lot of peers, even non-disabled, come to me and ask the question. I think you got to start at the bottom. If you think you're going to come to Hollywood and be a star, then Hollywood isn't for you. It's a job. Let's face it, it's a job. And it doesn't mean that you're going to do a lateral movement from acting to producing like I have. I'm a member of the TV Academy because of my work, because I've done everything already in my 12 years already. But what I want to do, and what I hope others will put in the forefront, is to be a part of a project that tells a message. Because the more stories and positive and difficult messages that we get out there through TV and film, the more people learn about others. So I would first do some independent work, get a talent agent like I have, and then when you're able, put your resume out there for entry-level jobs, because if you're applying to a studio that are very close to, like ABC, Disney, or others, you got to start at the bottom. And if you have something that they don't have, they'll recognize it, and they'll be a mentor to you. Some of their creative staff, and you just work and prove yourself and deliver, and people will gravitate towards that because they know how devoted you are to the craft. So I would recommend to anybody, disabled or not, pull up your sleeves, build up those credits, and you build up the respect that will get you hired.
I think that's fantastic advice. To me, it sounds like you're not going to be cold calling anybody. You're not going to be rolling in and being in the next big thing. It takes some modesty and hubris and making those connections at the bottom rung and kind of working your way in. Okay. Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. And I must say your acting experience definitely translates into your interviews. It's always a pleasure interviewing you. And I've got to ask one last question. Do you have a call to action for our global audience? Anything you want to say or a message you would like to get out?
My global call is to think about where we are. Think about where we've been. Think about your neighbor. Think about what you want for your family, your kids. Oh my God. I just couldn't imagine being a kid in this day and age, let alone a young person with a disability. But like I said earlier to my people in many business sectors, reach out to the underrepresented because they have talents that you may overlook that will be a gem to your company, and give them a chance to deliver. That's all I ask.
Very well said. Well said. Stephen, pleasure as always. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your work next time we interview and everything you're working on. I'll close out here and say, pleasure as always. Stephen James Tingus, Chair of Ideagen Hollywood. Thanks.
Thank you very much.